Have you ever wondered what it'd be like to be made from a test tube? In Brave New World, the director explains the process of how humans are made in these test tubes. They are divided into 5 different castes. Those castes are alphas, betas, gammas, deltas, and epsilons. They are divided into these 5 castes so the world runs more smoothly. In this world, sex is a very casual thing to do on a daily basis. They do this because they don't have to worry about babies, and families are even forbidden in this world. Another big activity to do is take a drug called Soma. Soma helps them leave the reality world and go into their own state of mind where they don't have to worry about anything. During the book, Bernard and Lenina go on a trip to a reservation in New Mexico. During this trip, Bernard realizes that the director is going to deport him to Iceland. Lenina is disgusted by the reservation, whereas Bernard is very interested in what they do. During the trip, Bernard and Lenina meet a kid named John who was raised on the reservation by his mom, Linda. John tells a story to Bernard and Lenina, and Bernard realizes that he could be the son of the director. Once he realizes this, he brings John back to the Brave New World and shows the director that this is his son. The director doesn't believe him, so the director resigns from this world. John doesn't like the way that the people live in this new world and is very disgusted. While in the world, he receives a call that his mom is dying. John's mom dies, and he couldn't even say goodbye. The people in this world don't know his emotions, so he gets a bunch of Soma boxes and throws them out the window. This causes a riot between John and the people in this world. Helmut then leaves the world to a new island. This leaves John and Mustafa Mond in charge of where very many arguments come about of how the world should be ran. This leads to John running away to a lighthouse. While at the lighthouse, there's a big movie displayed of John whipping himself where a bunch of people gather around watching it. During the movie, a big fight breaks out, which then leads up to an orgy. John has sex with Lenina. The next day, John realizes that he had sex with Lenina, and he then hangs himself from the lighthouse, where the book ends. One character that I wanted to realize and felt was important was Mustafa Mond. Mustafa Mond was one of the 10 world controllers. He was the most powerful person in this world. He used to be a scientist. Also, which was very interesting, he knew all about the Shakespeare stuff, and he even had a safe with all the literature books inside of it. There are many things that I liked about Brave New World. One of those things is how they made up their own world and how successful it actually was. I actually didn't think that they'd be very successful because people would be mad about who they are because an epsilon would want to be an alpha, but they would never be able to be an alpha because they can't learn or become as smart as them. That leads to the one thing that I disliked, which was how their life was predetermined. I think that they should be able to learn and become smarter throughout the whole book and not just be who they are like an alpha or an epsilon. One social issue that could be related to this book is how people use drugs to cope throughout every day. For example, in the real world, one person would need coffee every morning to be able to function throughout the day. And in the book Brave New World, Lenina would need Soma every day to be able to cope. This book made me feel that our world is not very stable, and that we should do what they do and make babies and humans in test tubes. Also, our world may have some things that are better than their world, but also may have some flaws. I think it is important for teens to read this book because this book makes real-world connections that the teens can realize and process. I'd rate this book a 7 out of 10. I would give this rating because I typically don't read this type of genre, but the book was still very interesting to me.